response figure in terms of motivic linkage. So when we begin the solo, you can see and then there's a response to that call. So I'm going to play a little portion of this. I'm going to show the call versus the response by changing which way I turn my horn. So even though Clifford is just playing by himself, you can hear a conversation between two voices within the solo. Another thing you'll notice is I have these red squares. These are around enclosure figures. So we have an E flat, an F going to a D. It surrounds chromatically the note it's trying to land on. So one thing I want to talk about is the 16th note passages within this piece. Clifford, although he's a trumpet player, he liked to play like a woodwind player, which is great if you're Clifford. It's a bit harder if you're trying to learn Clifford. But right here we have down in measure 58, we have some articulated 16th notes. So as you could hear, and then we change to the next one. You can see that he has more slurred and ghost 16th notes. So while I notated every single note that I heard, he's not necessarily playing all of them, because you gotta remember he's improvising this and I'm trying to recreate it. So a lot of the notes are actually ghosted and slurred, so that's one continuous fluid phrase. Again, we have more call and response figures, motivic linkage, and we have more enclosures that surrounds chorus too. So we'll take the next. Beautiful. And then to finish it out, we have, again, we have some funky rhythms with the triplets. Right on the top note in 92 and 93, you can see that it has this repeated rhythmic motif. This is something that occurs in a lot of Brown's melodic and improvisatory language. Is he'll take a rhythm or he'll take a phrase and he'll change it slightly. And that can be seen right up there. It can also be seen in 104 and 105 towards the end when he does, both are in red for enclosures, but he does the same triplet figure. So the next selection I'll be performing for you is also off of the Clifford Brown and Max Roach album. It's track 6, and this is called Jordan. Beautiful. So what you'll see in this solo is Brown's extended range of the horn. And then you will also see how he is able to tongue pitches in a way that's almost similar to a drummer. And he'll apply complex rhythmic patterns within his work and his improvisation. Awesome. And finally, he's going to use a lot of hard bop language, which we'll discuss further after the performance. Beautiful. So this is Jordan. define a call figure. Now we have red highlights. That's going to indicate a chord tone being on a downbeat. This is something that we see in a lot of Clifford Brown solos. And then finally, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about hard bop language. The purple will showcase chromaticism and bebop language. So to begin, we have 2 bars, and then we end on a downbeat, and then we end on another downbeat, a bar, 2 bars later, followed by another one. So we have a lot of repeated rhythm sequences. I kind of brought that up in Joy Spring, but right here you can see highlighted in yellow. It's that same rhythm, but it's just changed to fit within a leap and more angular chord structure within the E7 to the A7. We have some arrows right here from 42 and then in 44. Those are showing his scalular run. So he'll go up a scale and then he'll go down. You'll see this figure throughout a lot of his works. You can even see it down on the last line. We have chromaticism and bebop language. You can see it kind of goes in waves. So for the chromaticism and bebop language, again, Clifford loved his 16th notes, and he loved doing chromaticism, not exactly in the ways that you would expect. So a lot of us were music students. For trumpet, we practice Clark studies, specific patterns that you can use and implement in improvisatory language. That was not the case for Clifford. He did a lot of interesting movements. So if we look right in measure 61, we have C sharp, and then it goes E, D sharp, C, D flat, A flat, G. So it isn't just a nice, chromatic line. You're moving around, and it kind of keeps going back and forth in an angular way. Jordo itself is an AABA form. It's 32 bars and is in C minor. It uses arpeggios, chromatic enclosures, which we can see in the boxes again, and then also guiding tones to lead us through the structure. So if we can hit the next slide. Awesome. So he carries on that extended 16th note bebop and chromatic line until he gets to 67. As we recall, there was a quotation about extended range. Clifford had total control over the horn. And you can see right there that he hits an F. I tried to. Difficult. So he's able to have full control. He starts on lower notes in those chromatic lines, and is instantly able to shoot up to that higher register. He's able to have full control over the horn. Right over there, we have another example of rhythmic displacement in yellow. So you can see it's the same rhythm, but the notes are altered to fit within the chord structure. Starting at 76, we have another chromatic and bebop language lines. And then hitting in 84, if you don't mind switching to the next page, you can see this repeated rhythmic motif. And then it's also using kind of some bluesy inflection with the D sharp into the E. Finally, we have another chromatic line to finish it out, and it ends right on a chord tone. So some reoccurring themes within this is the chromaticism. He's able to combine chromaticism, his arpeggios, and leaps all into one solo, and it's masterfully done. I know that we're reflecting on this now, but we need to remember that when he was recording, he created this in the moment. He was so virtuosic, he was able to do this without, sitting in front of a laptop and transcribing for 24 hours like someone I know. Awesome. So we'll now be playing Sand Dune by Clifford Brown. This is track 6 off of Studying Brown. And next slide. So this quotation talks about how in this solo you can really hear how he performs melodies and uses grace notes and neighboring tones. So he has a lot of nuances within his playing that isn't necessarily note-wise, but he's able to really have jazz language through his little embellishments he makes on the solo. Finally, he uses a lot of the blue notes. Sandu is going to be a 12-bar blues, but you can really see his great blues inflection and blues language within this composition. So we'll be playing Sandu by Clifford Brown, and this will feature Kevin Malone on saxophone as well. Ooh. One, two, 20 and 21, highlighted in yellow, you can see that that is carbon copies of one another. It's the same exact phrase being repeated. And then when he finishes that second phrase, he goes into, oh, what I love, a chromatics and bebop line. Awesome. So once he finishes the chromatic and bebop line, he's able to lay back the time with a triplet group. And you can kind of hear in what I was playing, he tries to really bring back the time and bring back the rhythm section by being dramatic with his placement of the notes. You can also see that right in 27 through 31, he has repetitive figures, but then he changes it for the cadential, or for the cadences. So it changes from going from an E flat to an A to landing on a G to a B major. You can see within this that he uses a lot of blue notes. So this is a blues in F. We're seeing a lot of flat 3s, 5, sharp 4. Additionally, you can see more enclosures within the red boxes. And then he ends with this interesting rhythmic figure. Again, we talked about his nuances. He loves doing half valve and chromatic grace notes into the final notes, and this is really exemplified with his offbeat pattern. And also there's some microtonality with the scoops, because it isn't necessarily a perfect grace note like in a classical sense. He's kind of smearing into the notes. It isn't perfect. Yeah, Sophie. So sadly, we hit the point where Clifford got into his final accident in 1956 and tragically died. He was in a car with Richie Powell, who was in his original quintet, and Richie's wife, Nancy Powell. They had a performance at the Chicago's Blue Note, and unfortunately, they struck a bridge, and unfortunately, Clifford passed away. The night before his death, I think it's important to remember the fact that he was playing a gig before he went, and during that session, it ended with a standing ovation. He was on his way. He was continuing to grow as an exceptional jazz musician, and his time was cut short. Unlike many of his jazz contemporaries, Clifford was a very clean-cut man. He had a wife. He had a young son at this point. He didn't die from drugs. He was sober, but unfortunately, his life ended due to a car crash. Because of his perseverant spirit, his beautiful improvisatory lines, and then finally just for being a great human, he's remembered very highly in the jazz world. Brown is mainly remembered in the jazz scope for, number one, his tone. That's huge for trumpet players. I had previously mentioned that his tone is a synthesis of Fats Navarro, Miles Davis, and Dizzy Gillespie. And this is a tone that a lot of us jazz trumpet players try to emulate. Additionally, as we've discussed with the solos, his melodic and inventive improvisation style, he was able to morph different languages within jazz. He could play blues, chromaticism. He could have a conversation with himself all within one solo. So, just a couple of quick quotations before we finish this out. Max Roach, his partner, his drummer, was so stricken by the grief of the loss of his friends and Richie. He felt slightly guilty since they were both lost in the same car crash. He was so upset that he kept his trumpet seat vacant for many years. You're good. Some of you might be familiar with the jazz standard, and the title of this presentation, I Remember Clifford. Benny Golson wrote this about Clifford as he was struck by his musical talent and then also his kind spirit. So to end tonight, I'll be performing I Remember Clifford. This has portions of Lee Morgan's trumpet solo, but it is my own trumpet solo that contains all the elements of Clifford Brown's notable playing. So I'm going to bring up Dr. Hong, and we'll get started. On tenor saxophone. Aaron McGowan on drums. Lynn Yusko on PowerPoint and piano. Andrew Sonogo Tremuli as our bass player. And Dr. Holm served as both my advisor for this project, and he sat in on the last song on bass. So to finalize all that we discussed today, Clifford has gone on to inspire generations of jazz musicians and jazz trumpet players alike. Right here, I was able to gather this from Thinking in Jazz, a book by Paul Berliner. And you can see right here, I circled Clifford Brown's name in red, and you can see this almost family tree of sound influences that he inspired. Some of my favorites include Wynton Marsalis, Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan, all because of Clifford Brown's work. Awesome. So just some final thoughts. Brown's beautiful style of playing has been the envy of many trumpet players over the years, many of whom have striven to emulate him. I am one of those musicians, and I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to work on this project and focus on Clifford. This was my bibliography and discography, and I would like to open up the floor to questions. Dr. Scales.
How did you come to know Clifford? Like, what's that origin between you and him? How did it go?
Yeah, so my high school jazz trumpet teacher, he kind of threw the charts at me, and then I was like, okay, like spending a lot of time with this dude. So then that started to spark some more interest, and then throughout high school, I played with the Eastman Youth Jazz Orchestra. We started to learn more of these standards, and his name just kept coming up. And I got to college, and we were calling them at jam sessions. Sandu's one of Kevin's favorites, so I played it a lot, and yeah, it really became apparent that Clifford is my favorite trumpet player, and I really enjoy his sound and his improvisatory language, and that's why I came to this point. Victoria.
If you could dive into another one of his eras, which one would you do?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I would like to know more about his emerging as a leader phase. I want to spend more time with the Night at Birdland album, because while I listened to arguably all of his discography at least once, I listened to Max Roach and Clifford Brown probably 100 times that. So I would like to spend some more time with that, especially given the fact that it's like the forced formation of Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers group. I love that group, so I'd love to spend some more time there. Any other questions? Emily, where are we?
What was your favorite part about doing this research project, and why?
I think the entire process of just having research and then culminating and using performance as a way to research the project more was definitely something I enjoyed. I love performing and getting to really work on honing in my listening skills to figure out Clifford's exact articulations and exact ghosting of passages has been really enjoyable. I've also really enjoyed working with Dr. Holland. He's pushed me quite a bit. We've met like every day this week, so yeah. But that concludes my time I have, so thank you all so much. Thank you.